HOA officers scared my kids at night in masks. I met them with a shotgun and cameras. How would you react if the very people meant to uphold community standards became masked figures of intimidation, terrorizing your children in their own home? The peace of a summer night in the seemingly idyllic gated community of Willow Creek was a precious commodity. My two children, Lily, 8, and Tom, 6, were finally asleep after a day of splashing in our new above-ground pool. It was a modest pool, bought secondhand, but it brought them so much joy. I, David Chun, a single father and veteran who'd seen enough real conflict to appreciate quiet domesticity, felt a deep sense of contentment as I checked on them before settling down. Then came Karen, not with a knock, but with a chilling, calculated act of aggression. Karen Jenkins, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, had made it clear she disapproved of our pool. She'd called it an eyesore, non-conforming, and a blight on property values. Her demands for its removal had been relentless. But nothing prepared me for what happened at 2 a.m. A loud, deliberate banging on our front door, followed by shadowy figures peering through windows. Lily and Tom, terrified, ran screaming into my room, convinced monsters were outside. Peering through the peephole, I saw two figures in menacing, featureless white masks, wearing HOA jackets, banging rhythmically on my door. They weren't just knocking. They were creating a theatrical display of intimidation. "Mr. Chun," a muffled voice called out, distorted by the mask. "We are here for a mandatory property inspection. Open the door immediately or face extreme penalties for non-compliance with HOA regulations regarding nighttime disturbances." The main conflict, terrifying and deeply personal, was laid bare. Karen, using her HOA authority as a shield, was intentionally terrorizing my children to force compliance with her arbitrary rules. Her actions weren't about regulations. They were about control, intimidation, and a shocking abuse of power. Her attitude was one of blatant disregard for basic human decency, weaponizing fear against innocent children. I tried to reason with her by phone the next morning, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Karen, what you did last night was inexcusable. You terrified my children. This is harassment, plain and simple." I even offered to build a fence around the pool, a compromise I hadn't wanted to make. Karen, however, merely chuckled, a dry, brittle sound. "Mr. Chun, perhaps your children are overly sensitive. We merely conducted a routine, albeit unscheduled, inspection. Your pool is still in violation. And until it's removed, these inspections will continue. Perhaps more frequently. You have until the end of the week. The fines will begin accruing at $1,000 per hour for every hour the pool remains." Her tone was chillingly calm, her veiled threat of continued terror sickeningly clear. The fines began, accumulating with predatory speed. Karen openly boasted to other residents about her firm hand in maintaining Willow Creek's standards. Then, her malice escalated beyond mere threats. That evening, as darkness fell, I found the pool's drain plug had been removed, and the pump, which ran on a timer, was deliberately jammed, causing the entire pool to slowly leak its chlorinated water directly onto my neighbor's prize-winning rose garden. It was a direct act of sabotage, designed not just to force me to remove the pool, but also to create animosity with my neighbor. The water was already soaking into the ground, threatening to destroy the delicate plants. Right after discovering the deliberate draining, a crucial twist unfolded from an unexpected source. My neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, a kind, observant woman who loved her roses more than anything, rushed over. Her elderly, deaf father, who spent his nights quietly observing the neighborhood from his window with a pair of antique binoculars, had seen everything. He rarely spoke, but he communicated through drawing. He showed us a detailed sketch, two masked figures, one distinctly larger, the other with a specific gait, removing the plug and tampering with the pump. And, crucially, a small, distinctive tattoo on the larger figure's wrist, visible when their sleeve rode up. It matched the tattoo on Karen's personal security guard, a former police officer she often bragged about hiring. The larger consequence of Karen's actions became terrifyingly clear. The above-ground pool, in addition to being my children's joy, served a critical secondary purpose. It was a temporary water reservoir for the local volunteer fire department, an agreement I had quietly made with them due to the increasing wildfire risk in our area and the community's limited hydrant access. Her deliberate draining of the pool wasn't just a petty act of vandalism. It directly jeopardized the safety of the entire Willow Creek estates, leaving hundreds of homes vulnerable in the event of a fire. Her personal vendetta was now a direct threat to public safety, elevating my personal grievance to a matter of life and death for the entire community. Armed with Mr. Rodriguez's drawing, the fire chief's testimony, and the grim reality of the empty pool, I called an emergency HOA meeting, inviting every resident. The room was packed, buzzing with nervous energy. Karen, radiating confidence, entered late, flanked by two imposing men in dark suits, presumably her lawyers. "Mr. Chun," she announced, her voice dripping with disdain. "I trust you've assembled everyone to apologize for your persistent violations and the damage to Mrs. Rodriguez's garden." She smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes, assuming I was broken. "No, Karen," I retorted, my voice steady. "I've assembled everyone to expose your criminal acts and your shocking disregard for this community's safety." I projected Mr. Rodriguez's detailed drawing onto the screen, pointing out the unique tattoo. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Karen's face, initially contorted in disbelief, quickly turned purple with rage. "This is a ludicrous fabrication, an old man's senile ramblings. He's a menace. He's trying to frame me," she shrieked, desperately trying to manipulate the situation, her voice shrill and breaking. She pointed at Mrs. Rodriguez's father, openly mocking his age and perceived infirmity. Just as her tirade reached its peak, the doors to the community center swung open, and strode not just Chief Davis of the Willow Creek Police Department, but also Fire Chief Miller, looking grim, and, surprisingly, a local TV news crew, their camera already rolling. Fire Chief Miller spoke first, his voice resonating with authority. "Ms. Jenkins, your actions last night in deliberately draining Mr. Chen's pool compromised our community's fire suppression capabilities. This act of vandalism directly endangered every home in Willow Creek. We consider this a felony." Chief Davis stepped forward. "And Ms. Jenkins, we also have multiple complaints regarding the illegal use of masks to intimidate residents, attempted illegal entry, and a pattern of aggressive harassment. Furthermore, we've received an anonymous tip about widespread financial irregularities within the HOA, specifically large sums allocated for security enhancements that seem to have gone to a company owned by your brother-in-law for services that were never rendered." A nervous murmur rippled through the room as a junior HOA board member, clearly terrified, stammered to Chief Davis. She forced us to vote for those enhancements. She said it was for our protection. We didn't know the money was going to her family." It became chillingly clear. Karen wasn't just a control freak. She was embezzling HOA funds under the guise of security, and her masked intimidation tactics were a perverse way of justifying the inflated security budget, lining her own pockets through fraud. A past incident, whispered among the older residents, revealed that Karen had been previously disciplined at her corporate job for using aggressive tactics to intimidate competitors, which often involved spreading false rumors and sabotaging their equipment. The consequences for Karen Jenkins were immediate and utterly devastating. She was arrested by Chief Davis on multiple charges, including felony vandalism, harassment, and later, as the full extent of the fraud was uncovered, for embezzlement and racketeering. The Willow Creek HOA was placed under immediate state oversight, its bylaws frozen, and a full forensic audit exposed millions in stolen funds. Her aesthetic standards became a local joke, synonymous with corruption and fear. Her carefully cultivated image as the benevolent community leader shattered into irreparable pieces. The residents she had once intimidated now turned on her, furious at being manipulated and exploited, their safety compromised. Her social circles, built on an illusion of power and influence, abandoned her completely, unwilling to be associated with such public disgrace. Her vast real estate holdings, her fortune, her status, her perceived power all confiscated as part of the ongoing investigation and subsequent lawsuits. She lost everything: her freedom, her fortune, and her reputation. The ultimate irony was that her attempt to remove a small backyard pool led to the complete unraveling of her vast, illegal enterprise. As for my pool, it was swiftly refilled by the grateful fire department. And that night, as darkness fell, I was ready. The masked figures in HOA jackets returned, banging on my door again. But this time, I wasn't just waiting. I opened the door, not with fear, but with righteous fury. Standing beside me, my children safely behind a reinforced, locked door, was not just me, but also the flashing red lights of the police cars that Chief Davis had discreetly positioned. I had also set up multiple high-definition security cameras, openly visible, pointed directly at my front door, and held steadily in my hands, a legal, registered shotgun, pointed safely towards the ground, but clearly visible. "Gentlemen," I said, my voice calm and unwavering, "the sheriff's department is here, and so are my cameras, and I am exercising my right to protect my property and my family from masked intruders." The two HOA officers froze, their masked faces unable to hide their palpable fear. They dropped their clipboards and scattered, realizing their intimidation tactics were now being met with overwhelming legal force. The satisfaction was immense, a silent roar of triumph against tyranny. What's your take on this? When community leaders abuse their power to terrorize residents, how far should one go to protect their family and expose the truth?